We're a gaming company. We started off in mobile gaming, so we founded in 2011. Just really quickly about what the company I work for does. We're based, our HQ is in Beirut, of course, but we have a base in San Francisco. We're focused on game development and publishing. We do everything from start to finish, from design to art to even voiceover, like some of my voices in some of the games that we've done. So we do everything in-house. We're a team of 46. But it's only 10 on the VR side, so we're a team of 10 working full-time on VR. Mobile and virtual reality company. We started in mobile first. We jumped into VR in 2016, and yeah, that's it. Okay, so I'm probably repeating some of the things that you guys said, but it's just a lot of people have this misunderstanding that VR is just very recent. The moment people started hearing about VR is when Mark Zuckerberg or Facebook decided to buy Oculus Rift, but actually VR existed a long time ago. The concept of a wearable headset is from the 1965. It's not what it looked like. I just found this picture online. But basically, in the 1980s, 90s, NASA and certain universities were doing a lot of groundbreaking work in VR. It was the start of VR. And a lot of gaming companies decided to jump on the hype of VR to create a few headsets that I would say it looked a bit ridiculous, but today they don't look that different. It's just a more advanced version of headsets. But again, in VR, the gaming trend, as in every industry, the gaming industry usually leads the technology because a lot of the gamers, the closer they can get to the action or to being immersed in what they're playing, the more people are willing to spend in that technology. And this is why today virtual reality is being led by the gaming industry. So, started in 1965 when the first concept of a headset, but then when people started hearing about it is when Mark Zuckerberg decided to buy the Oculus, which had, I think at that time, the first development kit was being talked about. And this is when things started to pick up. You have the PlayStation VR, Sony was working on the PSVR, you have the Oculus Rift, you had HTC Vive working, and it all culminated to 2016 when you have the HTC Vive that was launched, you have the Oculus Rift, and at the end, you have the PSVR. And today, in 2018, these are the main headsets. So today in gaming, if you forget the Chinese market, because the Chinese market is overpopulated by different kinds of hardware, but overall, these are the three main competitors in terms of VR hardware. And a latest entrance, which is the Windows mixed reality headset. So at the end of 2016, Windows launched their own line of virtual reality headset. And of course, when Microsoft wants to go into something, they go in big. So they partnered with different hardware manufacturers, and they created 5 different VR hardwares. This one, actually, I was just reading today that it is comparable to the other in specs. It is comparable to other VR hardwares, such as HTC Vive and Oculus Rift, so it's doing very well. So it's just to show you, in terms of hardware, what is happening. Now, if you're thinking VR hardware, you think PSVR, you think Oculus Rift, you think HTC Vive, but how are they performing against each other? So today, PSVR is leading the race in VR with over 2 million headsets sold overall. And the reason you think that would be possible is because people already have access to a PS4. Buying a PSVR is cheaper than having an entire setup with an entire Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive setup, so it's understandable. Oculus Rift and HTC Vive, they haven't released their official numbers, but they definitely haven't reached the 1 million mark. Today, whoever has a Steam account or Steam VR account, Steam is a gaming store, and they have a Steam VR, which is specifically for VR gaming. And there are 800,000 active VR users using Steam VR. And basically, it's for the 3 hardwares, which are HTC Vive, Oculus Rift, and recently Windows Mixed Reality. The whole point of that is to say that even though there is a slow adoption due to many factors in VR, so having a HTC Vive and Oculus Rift is an expensive investment. You need to buy the PC, you need to buy the headset, etc. So mass adoption has been slow. That's not to say that people haven't been able to make revenues in the VR industry. Let's not forget that it's still a niche industry. So today, if you are able to create content, whether in gaming or whether in real estate or whether in anything that is original or new, people are going to pay attention. So this is where people who are in, particularly in the gaming industry, we come from mobile, which is oversaturated. And being able to jump into an industry that is niche, that is still very new, it's much easier to stand out. So, and some VR games have made over $3 million in revenue in under 6 months. That's only a select few. But these are the indie developers and not AAA studios. And you do have slow adoption in VR due to many factors. One of them is the setup price, as I was saying. Being tethered to the PC. I don't know if many of you have tried VR, but being all the time tethered to a PC has its disadvantages. And the lack of good content. But at the same time, there's a lot of solutions coming up in the coming year that solve these problems. So hardware manufacturers are dropping the price, as I'll show you on the next slide. You have the next generations of VR hardware that are being untethered. So has any of you heard of TPcast? TPcast basically is a hardware you put on your VR hardware like the Oculus or HTC Vive, where you can go wireless. So you won't be tethered to the PC. So this gives you a lot of room to maneuver. And the HTC Vive Pro is adding that on their next generation hardware, which is coming out at the end of this quarter. So there are solutions to all these pain points that are stopping adoption. And lack of good content. It's just recently that AAA studios have finally taken notice of the VR industry and have started investing money in it. Fallout VR, and a lot of some of the big PC titles that are jumping in, and PS4 titles. So again, this is just showing VR. So one of the pain points was the price points. So a lot of the VR hardware developers have started dropping their prices, and this saw in Q3 2017 a really uptake in the sales of VR hardware. This means that a lot more people are buying VR hardware, and this is a good sign to all of us VR developers out there. So next generation of VR hardware, there's the HTC Vive Pro. Today, HTC Vive is 3x3 or 3.5 by 3.5 meter space. Next generation is going to be 10 by 10. Just imagine the free roaming you have with that. And today, HTC Vive is tethered. At the end, with the HTC Vive Pro, you're untethered. So you're not connected to a PC. So the sky's the limit. The Oculus Go is, it's between mobile and PC. So it has a higher capacity than a mobile VR headset like the Samsung Gear. Not really up there with PC, but this should really help adoption because it's going to be cheaper than the Oculus Rift. And you have this PMax. I don't know if you guys have seen their crowdfunding campaign. They reached over $2 million. They have immense resolution. It looks really weird, but what you see in the mask is really, really nice. It like increases immersion. So we'll see. They haven't launched yet. They're launching this year. Okay, so I've spoken about VR. Now I'm going to talk about GameCooks' role in VR and what we've done and how we've really capitalized on the VR movement. So we started in mobile, so it only made sense for us to jump into mobile VR. We went to, I don't know if you guys have heard of the GDC conference. We went there with a game. We're like, this is going to be the best mobile game in the world, and we're going to show it to publishers. And we went there, and the whole conference was about VR, and we felt really behind. So like, VR is the place where we need to be. And so on our way back on the airplane, we were already drawing our VR game. We realized that, as not just in gaming, as in other industries, you're always looking for ways to stand out, always looking for a way to differentiate yourself. And for us, VR was the way, and I think it applies to a lot of other industries as well. They compare VR as the Wild Wild West. It was back then, not anymore. People are jumping on very quickly. And because we're a small team, people think, oh, VR requires a lot of investment, etc. Actually, no. If you're a small teams are much more flexible to change. It's much more easy to pivot as a small team and change than it is if you are a big team. And that's why a lot of AAA studios didn't jump in VR until mid to end of 2017. And in under 5 months, we created our first title, which is HOVR. Not going to go into it. It's mobile VR. We created mobile VR and we realized we wanted more. We wanted to jump into PC. We did well with HOVR, so it was a sign that we're doing something right. So we're like, why don't we take it to the next step? This is when we're like, okay, we've never worked in PC before. We worked in mobile. How do people do this? How do people completely shift? What are the things that we need to think about? There's no VR gaming community. I mean, it's starting to. There's now starting to be a VR gaming community. Very hard to get VR equipment. I'm sure everybody calls their relatives or anybody they know coming from the States or Dubai or from whatever to get the equipment because you can't get it easily from here. And if you do, it's like $400 more expensive. Lack of specialized VR gaming talent. Time is not on your side. When you're an indie gaming studio, you cannot spend a year or 2 years working on a game. That's just a big no-no. So you really have to be focused on what you're doing and finish as quickly as possible. We're going to work on a game that's a first-person shooter, but there's already a lot of first-person shooters. So what are we doing jumping into this industry, and how do we make it work? So I'm listing here some of the decisions we had to take. I mean, are we jumping into suicide? What are we doing? How can we make it as a small team in Lebanon, make it and compete against companies that are in the States? So what we decided to do is to really focus on what are the pain points that we can fix in VR. So I'm sure a lot of you that are interested in VR know that one of the pain points is dizziness. Who here has felt motion sickness when trying VR? Okay, yeah. So, and so for us, instead of seeing it as an obstacle, we're like, okay, if we want to stand out, we're going to have to tackle these things. This is how we're going to make ourselves more known. And this is what we did. So we focus on the core mechanics. One of them is locomotion. The other is shooting. Because, you know, in first-person shooter games, I mean, the shooting is a big part. And we did a lot of research. We did a lot of testing. We used Unity as an engine, which worked for building VR games, so that was good. We looked a lot for events. So we signed up. We're like, hey, we're this small company from Lebanon. We're trying to exhibit our game. And to our surprise, we actually were invited to exhibit in a lot of these things, not just because they liked the game. They liked the game a lot that we had, but also because there's still not a lot of content out there. And if you find a way to distinguish yourselves from the pack, you can find opportunities. It's not that hard. It doesn't require money. It just requires finding the right people. So look for events, look for awards, media opportunities. We reached out. I mean, I reached out to anybody who's related to VR media, to the media in the VR gaming industry. And we got in touch with so many people from the big media titles just by us putting ourselves out there and trying. And most importantly, for anybody going into VR, partnership are by far the most important thing. One of the things that we did is we reached out to the HTC Vive. We're like, hey, we have this game. It utilizes active VR gameplay. I think it would be good for you guys to use it as a showcase. And they actually did. And one of the events that they did, they actually placed it for a day on their booth to showcase what it means to roam around in VR. TPcast, which is the wireless, we reached out to them. We're like, hey, this is free roaming. You guys could use it. We signed the deal. Windows Mixed Reality, they don't have games yet. And we're like, hey, we can be one of the first people on Windows Mixed Reality. Like, hey, here's a free VR hardware. Okay. So here you try to partner with people who have the same interest as you in penetrating a market, because this will really lessen the marketing budget that you have. And I'm not just talking about gaming. I'm talking about in all industries. If anybody has any questions in the middle, because I don't want to just talk at you. If you guys have any questions, just raise your hand. So we created VINDICTA. It's a first-person shooter. I mean, it's not the most beautiful game you can find. There's a gazillion better games by AAA studios. But there are two things we did extremely right. One, which is the locomotion system. So basically in VR, most games are by teleportation or wave shooter where you're just standing. But VR is all about discovering your space. So what we did is we incorporated an arm-swinging locomotion system. So you swing your arms to walk, and this reduced to eliminated the motion sickness. And also, we allowed the player to roam around free. to duck, climb, crawl. So really adding to the immersion of the experience, which is what people are looking for in VR in the first place. And we gave them that. And people rewarded us because we included that. Even if it's only, we focus on only 2 things, we did them right, and we're able to stand out. We're selected one of the top indie games at VR LA. We won first place at VR Indie Pitch competition in SF. And even better, we realized that our game, because it has like, you can walk and move around, VR arcades love these kinds of games. So we've been signing deals with VR arcades all over the world, from Canada to Belgium to all over. So, and it's also on the Omni treadmill. I don't know if any of you have tried it. So again, it was just us focusing on 2, 3 things, doing them right, not necessarily having the best game in the world, but just knowing what people are looking for and targeting that with the limited time and budget we have, we were able to accomplish it. Okay, this is just pictures of my colleagues, but it's just to say that how important the environment is. Really, we would stay till like 3, 4 a.m. in the morning, just like testing, doing reiteration, reaching out to people. I think the reason why we are where we are today, we're launching actually our 3rd game in VR, is because of the mentality of the team of always trying to push, always looking for answers, not just sticking to the status quo and saying, oh, we can't do it, and just stopping. So really pushing the limit, because we're no different than any other company. The only thing that they did different is they actually tried, and this is what we did. So, thank you.